So, for the past 2 years, you have been hearing about the Convo by Design Icon Registry, my version of a Hall of Fame. And I started this reluctantly. Reluctantly? Yes, for one reason. I've shared this with you. We've talked about this. I've shared my disdain for the clickbait lists that many of the trade pubs and outlets offer. And if you're hearing this in December when it's published, it's happening right about now. So I think it's disingenuous to put designers and architects on a list because there is really no way of valuing one creative over another, especially when these lists often have absolutely no methodology for why someone's chosen. The blank blank 100, the blank top 50, 30 under 30, 40 under 40, 20 under 20. The blank of design, the blank of the year. You get me, right? Is it because of how many social media followers they have? Well, how many of those are real? I don't know. Do you? And the last thing I wanted to do was offer up the same thing. But on the other hand, this show is entering its 13th year. 2 years ago, in the shadow of an incredible year 10, I wanted to celebrate and showcase some of the amazing talent featured on the show. Celebrate them and enshrine them for their work, their selfless pursuit of sublime design, giving back to the industry, and for the intangibles that make them so special. And that is the criteria for why these incredible creatives are celebrated here. That is the criteria for enshrinement. That is the criteria for induction. It's not about what celebrity home they did, how expensive their last project was. You know what it's about? It's about, did they come on Convo by Design? When they came on the show, did they tell their story? Does their body of work warrant an honor? Do they break ground? Do they change the way we think about design? And again, it comes back to, do they give back to the industry? Do they make the industry better than they found it when they got there? That's really important, and we don't see that enough, and we don't see it often. And so that was what I wanted to do here, and that is the criteria. If you wonder how someone, after close to 700 episodes, how did these 12 of the year become enshrined? That's how. The Convo by Design Icon Registry is presented by an incredible partner, a partner who imbues these very criteria into the work they do, and why I'm so appreciative to Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, for being the presenting partner of the Convo by Design Icon Registry. We post a new Icon Registry episode on the third or fourth Thursday of every month. If there's a holiday, it's on the fourth. If there's not, it's on the third. With a whole new slate of inductees scheduled for 2026, and you're not going to want to miss those. But today, we're going to take a look back at each of the inductees from 2025 and allow you to hear a little bit from them again in this year-end review. And you can hear it all right after this. And beginning with our January inductee, Adam Hunter. If you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you've heard me say this, that the most important word in the design industry is service. Product is important, price is important, selection is important, but stellar service is the premier idea that can make all the difference in the success of a project, any project. How design professionals like you demand great service and your favorite brands in one place with expert, knowledgeable, and non-commission sales professionals. It's really important. It means that their only incentive is your satisfaction. Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, has just that with over 60 years of experience in Southern California. Pacific Sales is your destination for exploration, advice, and inspiration. Now, you have the Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home team to help you and offer their Pro Rewards program, which is a trade program unlike any you have experienced before. Earn 3% in Best Buy gift cards, e-gift cards, or 2.5% in rewards checks for every qualified and delivered sale. In addition to special trade pricing, exclusive offers, access to exclusive special events, and so much more than I could possibly tell you about here. And the cherry on top is access to exclusive builder trade incentives from top brands and the stellar service, again, from a company that has been serving the industry for over 60 years. Terms and conditions apply to the Pro Rewards program and builder trade incentives. So visit a Pacific sales expert at a showroom today for full details and to learn how you can unlock additional savings and benefits. Don't miss out on the opportunity to work with the best of the best. Visit Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home today and elevate your projects to new heights.
Yes, that's such a great question. I always did both. This wasn't something that happened to me at 30. I have been in Actors Equity and SAG for 45 years, and I'm 49. So you can see that I've been doing this professionally since I was a kid. My mom did it professionally. It was the family business. You were either a doctor, like my dad and my sister, or you were a singer on Broadway, like my mom and I. So it was work in the beginning and just what I knew. And I'm a pretty good singer. I'm insecure about a million things, but I'm a pretty damn good singer. And that was always sort of a lucky thing that always followed me. However, I grew up with a mother who was in Architectural Digest in the 80s for being garage sale chic because she knew how to shop the properties in Chicago. My mom and I are the opposite. I can find the most expensive thing in the room. She can find the cheapest thing in the room. Always been the case. But she does have very good taste. We lived down the street from Holly Hunt. And Holly has been a massive inspiration for me, both personally, more professionally, but I certainly know her. But we used to pick up her stuff that she'd throw out every quarter. So my mom would call me and say, bring Mike home because I'm getting the station wagon. She threw out a console table. And we'd scramble and pick it up. And so that whole, I always associated her name with elegance. And so it was from 6, 7, 8 years old. I always knew that as well. And I'll speed this up. Going to New York. So I went to Ann Arbor for college, which was a really great musical theater conservatory. I always knew at the end of the day that I would be on Broadway as a singer, even when I was a child. And I was there by 21 in Les Mis, which was very lucky. And then I worked with some incredible Broadway stars in shows like Ragtime, The Lion King, La Boheme, Phantom, Les Mis. My favorite was Ragtime, which we had Audra McDonald and Brian Stokes Mitchell's. That name might not mean anything to the rest of the world, but to our people, they were the king and queen, still are. And Patti LuPone, Julie Andrews, they would ask me to go to flea markets with them on the weekend because I was the kid in the chorus who liked to go to flea markets and had the eye for it. So I was sort of doing it at 21 professionally, but I wasn't making any money for it. But I got to say that I went with Julie Andrews to the flea markets. No one can say that. And that was always part of my life. I was much more interested in calling out of the shows and redesigning my own place in the West Village on 12th Street. And I would have my friends, because I was terrible. I'm Jewish. I was terrible at like the actual doing of things. It was all in my head and I couldn't do it I'm not handy. I wish I was. I don't draw. I wish I did. We all have our skills, right? But I would employ these people for free or for pizza and beer, who ended up becoming, I don't know if you know the actor Patrick Wilson, who is now a famous movie star. He was my painter. I had a bunch of different friends who on the weekends we would need different creative outlets and they would be designing the apartment in the different apartments because I had such a passion for that. But my career was that until I was 31 and I came here to do a show called Ugly Betty. And then there was a writer's strike in 2008. And that's when everything changed to interior design.
So when did you make the decision? When you attain success at something and the circumstances around that something change, one has to make a conscious decision to fight through or uncouple from it and go in a different direction and pivot. I remember Ugly Betty. When did you make the decision, and do you remember the process that you went through?
That is an exquisite question. No one has layered that so beautifully. Um, Not until years into the career. Um, it was my waiting tables job, even though I was extremely successful right out of the gate for luck, really. You know, you hear about luck, I had luck. My first job was published for Vogue and Time magazine, and I got all her press went to me. And suddenly celebrities were calling me, and I was like, hold on, I have an audition for Transformers #3. Um, so it wasn't until 3 or 4 years into my career when I started to get published in things. And again, it still seemed like my waiting tables job till I became a big Will and Grace sort of TV star or whatever. And my friend said to me, maybe this is your thing. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm waiting for my Tony Award. And they were like, well, this maybe is your Tony Award. And I remember the conversation with my friends, and I thought, my first thought was like, designing for entitled rich people is my Tony? That doesn't feel like, but it was. There's such a wonderful creative aspect to it, incredible collaborations.
That was Adam Hunter. This is Leo Marmol of Marmol Radziner. Like I need to tell you that.
Leo, you and I are in an older generation. I think we would...
That's where we're going to start.
Mm-hmm. It was the 80s too, not just the 90s. I'm not that young.
Anyway, Leo, tell us,
My name's
as an
Leo.
eminence on
and
this
I too am
stage.
a Gemini.
Whoa, we've
Yeah.
got some split
June,
personalities.
May. Okay, thanks. We have a lot to talk about. So yes, it's true. Ron Radziner and I started working together in 1989, and I say that all the time in our office, and so many people on our staff look at me and they say, that was before I was born. That always makes me feel great. We went to school together at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, and when we began, we started working together right down the street in Venice, and I moved to Venice after I finished school because I loved the community of Venice. I came to Los Angeles because of its architectural history. That's what brought me here. I grew up in Northern California, north of San Francisco in Marin County. So I defected from Northern California, moved here because of the traditions. I am, to this day, enamored with the modern tradition. There is so much to learn. There is so much relevance to the history of modern architecture here in LA. And so our practice has really been interested in that history. We've, of course, restored much of that history. And I think that for us, that's continuing education in the lessons of modern architecture, and to have to repair and uncover and take apart and put back together these artifacts. It's a great way to understand that thinking. So we're a unique office in that we are architects and began as traditional architects, but very quickly started doing construction. So we're a design build firm. And we also do landscape architecture and interior design. And because of the construction side of our office, we have a cabinet shop and a metal shop. Our construction teams include concrete teams. We have a finished carpentry team, landscape installation. We're a very unique mix of individuals, and it's one of the things I love the most about our office, is that it's an incredibly diverse group of individuals with different perspectives and backgrounds, levels of experience, and we learn so much from all of them. So for me, it's a process of discovery. I think our projects, although fundamentally about so many of the lessons that we've learned here in Los Angeles, we're also trying to uncover and discover our clients' desires, the site's desire, and trying to respond to those influences. So I feel incredibly fortunate to have been in this industry for so long. Thank you, Frances. And
you and I both.
Yes, yes. And so with that, I will turn this over.
Thank you, Leo. March, brought Cliff Fong.
And I caught you at a really interesting time. You know, I want to talk about the background. I want to talk about the backstory in fashion, because it's really fun. You know, for me, sometimes I don't go back and listen to back episodes because I can't do it. Do you go back and look at your past work and use it as a learning tool? Do you go back and look at it to see, do you judge yourself when you go back and look at what you've done in the past?
Well, I would say, no, I never go back and look at things in the past because I find very little value in it. But I would say, yes, I am constantly judging myself and judging whether or not something I am doing or contributing to or creating is kind of as special as I can, you know, as I hope to make it. So I think it's really unproductive, and I think that's probably something I learned in fashion, that it makes no sense to try to navigate anything from the past, right? I might look at something, be happy with it when it's finished, and then it might completely, you know, repulse me afterwards. But that is sort of the nature of how things work in fashion. It's seasonal, and you move in a progressive moment from season to season, and you leave whatever, you know, you've done in the past behind. Or if you really know what you're doing, then you build on what it is that's been done in the past. And I think by the time I started working in design, I felt like I had a much greater perspective on the potential to do that versus what I was constantly trying to, you know, chase concerning fashion. Now, you know, with design work, if someone, you know, thanks to iPhones and Facebook, you get these memories whether you want them or not. You know, they just show up on your phone or they show up on your desktop or whatever. And every once in a while I look at them and I think, oh, wow, things have really evolved since then. But I'm not so critical of what it is that I had done, because I had done something for a client, the client was happy, and it really was sort of the best it could have been at that moment. But, you know, if I think if, and please don't go out there and look for it, but if I look at my high school yearbook picture, that is the thing that's the thing where I think that's the thing that made me never to look back. Because I just said, well, who did I think I was then? Or what was I doing then? Or I mean, it just seems kind of ridiculous. So yeah, I try not to burn myself with things that aren't really very helpful or productive or useful. And in truth, I'm not terribly sentimental either. So I don't always, you know, look back on things in some sort of wanton way. I really like looking forward or just being in the moment.
Back to the origin story that includes fashion. And I love this, and I find it really interesting. You know, over the years, interviewing creatives of all types, I've always find it fascinating to talk to. I've spoken to a designer who was once she was an agent with CAA. And you think, why would you leave? It's not de minimis to an interior designer, but why would you leave as you're at CAA, you're out of the mailroom, like you made it. All you got to do is keep going and you're going to crush it. But I've also spoken to designers and architects who were lawyers, who had gone to school, they'd gone through the whole process to get a professional degree in another profession. And what I found was, it's interesting that the frame of reference, the knowledge base that they learned from that world, that they brought into this world, had given them a skill set that nobody else has. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, your background in fashion, what do you think that gave you as far as a frame of reference? How does that inform you as a designer?
Well, you know, I'm not exactly sure how the work influenced kind of my current aesthetic, but I think it may have influenced the practice of defining an aesthetic for somebody. I think because I'm a student of art history and I've spent a lot of time in Europe, well, actually in a lot of, you know, different geographic regions. When I look at things, whether it's a piece of art or a piece of architecture or a piece of fashion, for whatever reason, I think because of my various experiences, everything gets put into some sort of context for me that I can understand from a historical perspective. So in that regard, I think I'm always quite conscientious of where there's a valid reference point to express, where there are some things I might want to avoid because they might represent a less interesting moment for me, or something flimsy, or something that might only exist as an affectation. I generally kind of avoid those things because most of what I'm interested in exploring are more substantial moments in design or art, and in some ways, when I worked in fashion, that's also something that I was interested in doing, and not looking at trend or thinking about what might play to an audience that kind of is kind of looking at things in a trendy or flimsy or kind of thin or fast way, which is kind of where fashion is at the moment. I don't think it's a great time in fashion because there's so many companies that actually are conglomerates for smaller companies, like, for instance, someone like Hermenegildo Zegna. It's a vertical company that has its own factories, its own textile production, its own lines that it owns. Like, for instance, they just bought Tom Brown, but they had also been producing for Versace, Valentino, even Giorgio Armani. So what's really different about those collections, other than the label? If you're buying a black gabardine jacket, maybe you're getting a little bit something different in a cut, but you're getting the same kind of quality across the board. And then with all of these companies now that try to snag designers from Gucci or Saint Laurent or Balenciaga, they just keep moving from house to house. Well, where's the loyalty to the brand in that respect? And I think a lot of those companies are kind of doing themselves in by trying to stay too current, as opposed to sticking close to their philosophical origins or the tradition of their branded luxury that gave them that longevity. And I think a lot of people are changing their business models in a way that I don't think represents good long-term perspective. I think the more people kind of flip-flop through their industry, there's a diminishing marginal return for every time they make a change. And I think much more identify with the idea of being consistent and building or evolving around a single philosophical point, expanding versus thinking linearly and how to get to A to B.
I want to expand on that idea a little bit, because I think one of the things that is extraordinary.
Thank you, Cliff. This is the entirety of EYRC Architects for April.
The use of space inside, the transition in the use of space from inside to outside using the sliding doors and the massive windows, and the fact simply with the casitas how you have it wide open with a sheen covering that will close it to the outside, and the fact that there is not a bad view in the house. The way that you've structured it, the way that you've placed it, and the way that this building resides, it looks like it belongs here. So what was the approach?
Well, that states the goal, for it to look like it belongs here. And the materials, there are really, other than glass, there are two principal materials. One is a rusted steel, and the other is cast-in-place concrete. And they're both very organic, and they're not pristine. They have their own a life unto themselves. They're not perfect materials, and that's part of what's beautiful, is that their colors and depth go in and out. The steel is actually held off of the face of the building with more or less a 1-inch air gap. So what happens is, when in the hot season, the sun hits the steel and there are gaps between the steel and it dissipates. So in a way, it's a natural idea of air conditioning. The same principle actually is happening up on the roof, because we have a plane of photovoltaic cells that are lifted about a foot off the roof itself. So the sun is hitting those photovoltaic cells, producing most of the electricity for the house, and not being allowed to penetrate and make the house hotter. So there's kind of a high-tech, primal, sustainable strategy going on here.
And then one of the things that I think is fascinating too with the structure, with the use of space, is how the furniture storage built into the exterior of the internal walls, how you mentioned there's not a lot of paint here, and what the finishes were to that. And then there's two pieces of art which are just completely stunning. What went into the decision-making process?
Well, I want to say that the owner, Jeannie, I will just use her first name, is a major patron of the arts and has an amazing eye and is doing all the furnishings herself. She bounces ideas off of us, which we're happy about, but she's really doing that on her own. And we had a conversation that there really won't be art on the wall, but two site-specific significant art pieces are here. One is by light artist David Wiseman, and the other one is a reflective light and space artist, Philip K. Smith. And I think that it was kind of a discovery that we all were on. Jeannie and Megan, you'll talk to Megan in a moment. We all went on this journey, and it's been a 5-year journey. We're still friends. So far, we still like each other after 5 years. And the house also is a lot about balance. Like when you walk in, it's symmetrical to the pool, but then the David Wiseman piece, which has a certain softness to it, pulls your eye over to the west side. So there's a lot of ebb and flow of experience and emotion going on. I'd like to think of this as we designed with the idea of emotion as part of the ingredient.
Longtime friend of the show and just an incredible person, Joan Banky.
I love your approach. I love that art and design is as important. They're equals to you.
Well, I think it's not just art in terms of paintings or sculpture. They're all intertwined. There was a documentary about the Yellow Silk, the Silk Road ensemble. It was Yo-Yo Ma, and it's a fascinating documentary about music from around the world, where he brought all these musicians from the Silk Road, basically, and he put them together. And I insisted that everyone in my office go see the film. I paid for everybody, not a big deal, but they took time off of work to go see that. And so when I think about art and how it relates to design, it's not just Art Basel and paintings and sculpture and video art. It is art in the bigger sense. When I go to a dance concert, because I happen to love dance, I look at space organization. I look at how a choreographed piece is laid out, and I think about that personally with regard to organizing a house. I was at a lecture one time where Twyla Tharp had a student at USC. She was explaining choreography, and she had the student dump her purse on the ground and then organize the elements that were in her purse. And she did it with like 3 different students. What was fascinating is one person created a circle with all the stuff that was in a purse. It was like pens and pencils and pennies and everything like that. One student organized it in the way of putting together the pens in rows and did it almost in kind of an architectural way. My point being that you can go to art in all these different ways, the music, the dance and painting and sculpture, and integrate it into design if you're willing to just be open to this. It's all inspiration. I love introducing clients to art and pushing them beyond their limits. We've worked with clients where they had what I call pretty art. They had paintings, good quality paintings, mind you. One client had Sicilies but they were of flowers. And I started pushing them to contemporary art, and I said, this is very nice to live with, but does it challenge you? Does it provide you with some kind of inspiration other than just being pretty and being background? And before I knew it, they were buying amazing pieces of major artists. And this last trip that I took, we were with a client, didn't get Chuck close until I said, this is one of the great portrait artists of this century. He has this rare disease of not being able to remember a face, and yet he paints portraits. So I said, there's this incredible conundrum, but look at what he does. It's and we pushed him. We pushed him to buy some Jim Hodges. We pushed him to buy Chuck Close. We pushed him to think about art that challenges him in a way that is not just background art. So it's really important also to allow art sometimes to bring color into homes, because some clients are very, very comfortable with just neutrals, and they get nervous about color, and I always say that's fine. Just bring the color in with the art.
Do you ever find it frustrating that, and I'm making a number of assumptions here, but do you ever find it frustrating that first priority in design is always the furniture and the rugs and the things you sit on and things you use and things you use every day, and art is oftentimes, unless it's someone who's already passionate about art, it's kind of a background thing. It's an afterthought. But that's not the way it is with you. That's not how you view it.
Not at all. And also, even with furniture, I mean, you look around my office, and there's decorative pieces that I consider art. Where it starts, Josh, is that I think of a room as a sculpture. So to me, when you enter a space, it becomes sculpture, and I think that's a different approach. Furniture needs to provide comfort, but our office, is a little bit different in that we're not just decorators. We do backgrounds, we do ceilings, we do floors, we do walls, we do, millwork, all that kind of stuff. That's all part of what we do. And the big thing about that is to integrate all of those pieces, and that's the fun thing, honestly, because if you're just buying fabrics and chairs and tables, you're limited. Again, it's about being open to what is out there and how one thing can influence. There's many times that art, painters, paintings have influenced us in terms of how we've designed custom carpets. How we've designed furniture, how we've designed lighting, how we've considered that, and nature. Nature's a big influence for me, and but I think about what we do as interior sculptors. That's kind of our starting point.
It's interesting to me too, and I love this, how you talk about challenging your clients. You're relatively soft-spoken. And I'm
as we're talking, I'm thinking about this, and art is so personal.
Very personal. It's the soul of the house.
Right?
Absolutely.
And design in general is a personal thing. But in my experience, which is limited, talking to a client about design choices is almost an academic thing in many cases, but art is not.
That's true. We circle for landing with clients. That's how I describe it, because we can do presentation boards, we can do renderings, we can present things to a client, and they say, oh, that's sort of nice, and they're reserving their judgment. They're trying to be open, but then they start circling back to the things that they're familiar to, and in conversations I've had, there's a bridge that you have to cross, and when you just spoke about how I'm sort of soft-spoken, I'm not. I let the client cross the bridge to me more than my. There's a way to get someone to trust you. And when my children were young, we would play Risk with friends. And there's a way to conquer the world, which is that you don't just automatically just become incredibly aggressive and go for broke. You hold back a little bit, and you let people develop a trust in you that you're guiding them, that you're not doing it. Also, it's not your home, so you have to understand what the limit is with a client with regard to reaching across. It's there's a political element that you have to play. You have to be psychologically smart when you're dealing with clients and knowing when to push them.
In June, it was Ramza, the Robert A.M. Stern architects.
Well, we've all been there a long time, as you suggest, and I guess I have probably been there the longest of the four, but who's counting? And the studio system that we have now has actually evolved over the years. I mean, when I started in the firm, there were 3 people at Ramza, and when when Grant and Randy and Gary started, there were way fewer people than there are now. So I think we sort of, and originally we would work on projects as they came in, and we were available to take them on, and it was all one big office with very little structure and very little organization. And at a point in time, more than 20 years ago now, we decided that, aside from making architecture that would last for the ages, we also wanted to make money, at least enough money to stay in business. And one way to achieve that was by organizing ourselves into these studios, which almost by default are sort of market-centric. Each one specializing to some extent in a certain kind of building. Some of them do more than one kind of building. But the 4 of us work largely on private residential work. And some of us, Grant and Gary in particular, work more on non-private residential work than Randy and I do, but even we have gone beyond our borders.
If I could jump in, Bob Stern always gave at least the 4 of us and others in the firm early on, like, a huge amount of responsibility. We could do as much as we could handle. So even in my early years in the 1980s, just out of school, I sometimes worked for Roger and then worked for Bob, but had a huge amount of independence. And now that we're a bigger firm, that isn't true for the younger
Right.
people. It takes a long time for them to really take on the amount of responsibility that we were all given right from the get-go.
Yeah, it was very much sink or swim for us. I mean, we were thrown into these big pools, and and they would see if we could actually do it, and we did manage to do it. Of course, life was a lot less litigious back then, and I think we were more prone to take risks like that than we are now.
I think that's really interesting. Grant, your thoughts on that, and did you feel the same way when you came in?
Yes. I mean, I just to continue the discussion a little bit further. I think one of the things that happened, 20 plus years ago, was when Bob ended up at running the School of Architecture at Yale. I mean, that changed the whole way the office ran, and we had a lot more responsibility because he wasn't there. We had to take the mantle and deal with these issues, and I think that really did foster the studio system in a way which, in hindsight, was very good.
You're listening to the year-end recap of the Convo by Design Icon Registry. We'll be right back after this with our July inductee, Jeff Andrews. At the highest level of design, the absolute best specifying designers, architects, landscape designers are all highly focused on the technology and performance of products and materials today. You have to, because the products you specify for your projects have to perform and they have to last. That's one of the reasons why I am so proud to be working with TimberTech. Their focus on the technical renaissance of synthetic decking is literally changing the conversation about innovation and performance. It pulls focus on 3 priorities homeowners have and expect from the products their designers and architects specify for their luxury projects. 1, aesthetics must match the overall design and fit visually. 2, durability and maintenance. I've told you about my board flipping stories from my own wood decks. Clients not only want beauty, but they want ease of use, and they want it to last for decades. 3, sustainably made. Clients are more conscious of the environment now, and they want the same of their materials. TimberTech hits each one of these elements with a product that not only meets expectations, they exceed them. TimberTech makes a synthetic decking that looks just like wood, color and embossed wood grain for a natural appearance. Their composite decking is technologically superior, as it has been created to last for decades, and it's manufactured with up to 85% recycled material. Their advanced PVC, vintage, and landmark collections have a Class A flame spread rating, making these products an amazing choice for wildfire-prone areas, which unfortunately continues to grow on the risk map. Check the show notes for more information about this and to find the nearest showroom or lumberyard where you can find TimberTech, or you can check them out directly, timbertech.com. The Design Hardware Showroom is a space where specifiers can go and find an incredible selection of high-end faucets, luxury tile, natural stone, wood floors, and bespoke hardware, and so much more. Select products are presented in a holistic manner, strategically arranged to stimulate creativity and transition your vision from the conceptual stage to a fully realized space. You will find everything you're looking for, even the products by brands you didn't know. Surprise and delight. Am I right? All under one roof on 3rd Street in Los Angeles, just up the street from the Grove. Conveniently located, free parking available. Stop by to find inspiration, collect samples, get expert advice, and tackle everything on your specification list all in one place. Visit them online at designhardware.com, at Design Hardware and Flooring on the socials, or in the real world, 6053 West 3rd
I'm Jeff
Street
Andrews.
in
I'm
Los
an
Angeles.
interior designer here in Los Angeles, actually a choreographer turned designer, but I've been designing for about 20 years, and my firm is Jeff Andrews Design. And I have been getting more into product development over the last 5 years. So I have a furniture collection with A. Rudin and a rug collection with Mansour Modern. I have a couple wallpaper collections and a wood surfacing collection, and I'm working on an outdoor furniture collection. So that started to take up a lot of my time. but I still really enjoy residential interior design, and that's where my main focus is. To me, your brand is just you. It's really just your aesthetic, your creativity, how you choose to put that out into the world, and how you market it. So I don't totally agree that it's all about a logo, I have to say. Like, it's really about, like,
I don't think it's all about
visual.
a logo.
Okay. But it's like everything that you put into like the stuff I put into my work with my clients, and how I listen to my clients, and how I interpret their thoughts and their dreams into reality and through my own creativity. So it's all a path that's connected. So getting into like product design has been interesting because I didn't know at the beginning exactly what I wanted to say. It was really through like getting introspective with myself and looking at my past projects and looking at, for example, looking at furniture that I had custom made because I couldn't find it. And it was just in my own head. So I had to really put pen to paper and figure out what I wanted to say as a furniture designer or a rug designer or a wallpaper designer, besides just being an interior designer. So I feel like the story's still being written, and it's not, I feel like it's not that calculated as far as like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and this is how I'm gonna put it out into the world. It's really just kind of going within and doing what feels right to you as a creative, and trying to put that into a business sense that's gonna let people know who you are.
Thank you, Jeff. This is Frances Anderton in August.
So yeah, hello everybody. My name is Frances Anderton. I've been following design and architecture in Los Angeles for more than 30 years, since I became one of the many people who moved here from another place, absolutely drawn by LA's creativity. And so obviously it's very interesting for me to talk about this very topic. All roads lead to SoCal, long live the creative experiment. I'm actually going to put a question mark at the end of that, because I think we're at a very interesting time right now where the question might be, do all roads still lead to SoCal as a place to thrive creatively? And that's what we're going to talk about now. I think what you will hear amplified from the guests is that LA is an incredible magnet for creatives, to the point that we're now at a kind of interesting stage in LA's evolution where it's actually, one can no longer come here as the impoverished artist and find a warehouse for 5,000 square feet that costs, almost nothing, and start experimenting. It's less easy to forge that path in Los Angeles. So what does it mean to be creative and to develop one's creativity in Los Angeles today? It, of course, is still happening. It's still sort of hypercharged, but sort of what form that takes is what we'll talk about.
September brought an icon in his own right, Martin Lawrence Bullard. So we found ourselves, and I am in awe of what the design community did during the pandemic. I think it was extraordinary. I think what people like you...
It was no easy feat.
Right?
Yeah. It's still not. We're still recovering, from the backlog. I literally have it just cleared customs. I have a container that I bought 2 years ago in Marrakesh that is only just clearing customs now. It's insane. The great thing that happened during COVID is that, people got to stay home. They got to feel their homes, because so many times, you end up getting up early, going to work all day, coming home exhausted, eating your takeout and watching the TV. Whereas people got to really be in their homes, experience the light at different times of the day, feel how they wanted to use the rooms, many times discovering that they didn't like the room that they were in using for that purpose and wanting to repurpose it. And so it's given a lot of fresh imagination to people's spaces and new requirements. And so that was something that's been really interesting to dissect and work out in the moving forward in life from now on. I don't think it'll ever be the same, actually. I think everything's really changed, and I think the way people want to use their spaces and experience their home lives has changed. And I mean, obviously, we're sitting in Soho Home right now. This is a prime example of a company that sort of sprouted from the ashes of COVID times, in the fact that they are a stock company where people come in, they buy a designer-looking product that they can take home with them. Because now people don't want to wait. They want instant gratification, or as I like to say, they want instant joy. They want joy, they want things that spark happiness in their lives, and they want them now.
And okay, so let's talk about that and how, excuse me, those challenges affected the work that you were doing. You know, it's funny. I think that there are people out there who thought, well, certainly Martin Lawrence Bullard was able to get things, even though my designer couldn't. It's not necessarily about pull. It's just, if you can't get it, you can't get it. If it takes 2 years to clear customs, it takes 2 years to clear customs.
Yeah. There was no pulling, the strings. Even if it was, it was a dining table for share, they couldn't give a damn. It's still sitting in, Indonesia being lacquered 9 months later.
How did that change you as a designer? What effect did that have? And I imagine too, I'm kind of like leaning back and thinking, with your show business background, with that whole Tony Duquette idea of, glue gunning, let's figure out, if we can't have this, let's figure out how to make what's close or what will last until we get what we want.
Yeah, one of the things that we did during the pandemic and are still doing now is we sourced local. So rather than ordering all those things from Italy and, sort of fabulous French light fixtures and stuff that were taking months and months to make and get delivered, we totally just changed the way we did it and started to use local vendors to create things that maybe are not the same but similar, or even a brand new design we would introduce. I went back to several people with their signed off design and said, look, I can't get this, but how about this? How about we change this look? And people went for it. So a lot of it's become American-made product. A lot of things are Los Angeles-made product that we can get our hands on fast. And we can oversee the vendors and the artisans making it. And that's really become part of our everyday life now. It's very much, we are making things rather than ordering things, because we can control it, we can get it faster, and we can, guarantee the quality.
Are you able to find that same level of craftsmanship that was that a problem? Like in certain areas, it's funny. So during the pandemic, we moved to Tulsa, where we're working on a design house. And for those who have never been to Tulsa, some of the architecture there from the 1920s, the Art Deco is just extraordinary.
Wow!
And I was being given a tour, and they explained to me, the docent was explaining, like they had to go and train people to paint so that they could get it back to what it was supposed to look like. They had to train people to weld in a certain style and tile in a certain style, and they had to. Can you find, are the trades coming back? There was a time where if you wanted something, you had to go outside of Los Angeles.
LA is a very special place because we have many extraordinary artisans here. There's a big Latin community. There's a lot of Mexican community that are all artisans. And some of them are still artisans that have learned it from their grandfather and their father, and it's been passed down, which is kind of, we've lost it in so many other communities, but there's still a real strength and pride. And so these wonderful artisans have been producing beautiful things. And they're here in LA. It's wild. I mean, you have to look for it a little bit, but we do have incredible artists. I've got friends from New York and Chicago and Palm Beach in Florida that are all asking me to help them find the artisans to make the stuff coming out of LA, because they know the quality's good, because they know these people have real backgrounds. And it's a little bit like in France and Italy, where it's generational. And they're training, father-son situations. So we do have that here. It is amazing. Now, maybe not everything. Maybe we don't have, extraordinary Chinese lacquerists or some of the amazing skills that you find in the fine couture furniture houses that are based in and around Paris. But we've got good enough and sometimes far better than good enough, sometimes superior work here. We're very lucky.
Thank you, Martin. In October, it was the Novogratz.
Well, I mean, it really is apples to oranges, right? So my daughter went to USC and stayed when she graduated last June. I mean, she absolutely loves it. And she went kicking and screaming when she was 16. So I love that we experienced it, because I do feel like if you're fortunate, you should experience both coasts and maybe live in the middle as well. But there is a big difference. And I think it's so unique, and it's great. Both places are completely different. So you're either East Coast or West Coast, I think, at heart.
It's so funny too, because or you live in the middle, and I'm in the middle now. I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma, working on a design house project.
Oh, that's a cool city. People don't realize how cool Tulsa is.
They don't. So you've been.
Oh yeah, I've been. There's actually some great, I think it's Jinx, Oklahoma. There's a cool town with antiques and stuff nearby. But Tulsa's got great architecture.
It's remarkable architecture. And it's funny because it was basically, after the Glenpool struck, it was all these New York oil men came in and created this little New York City.
Yeah, it's very cool. The Hanson brothers live there too.
That's right. They do. They do.
We know them.
And they play at Kane's Ballroom, which is just an amazing venue. They play here all the time. Anyway, I digress. But it's interesting because you started, one of the things that, you started doing was you got into design by purchasing a brownstone and started getting into it. What was that like? Here's why I ask. I feel like we're in this moment in time, not dissimilar to 08, 09, when huge financial crisis. And when there's huge turmoil like that, people start reevaluating the meaning of life and their purpose and what they're doing. And we're at another moment in time where people are looking at design and realizing the importance of design and architecture in the everyday lives. And so people are starting to look at design and architecture again. And I'm curious because you had a different focus, and then you find this place and you decide to roll up your sleeves and get into it. And having an experience like that, it will either completely scare you away and you'll never want to do it again, or you fall in love with it. And clearly, you and Robert fell in love with it. What was it about that experience that changed your course?
Exactly. Robert and I, even when we were dating, we shared the same kind of love of antiquing and design and real estate. So that passion was already kind of inside of us. And of course, we started planning our wedding, bought a condemned building, mainly because we knew we wanted a lot of children. We were like, what's a co-op board and a condo? And then there's maintenance fees. And this seems crazy. And we knew if we could get an individual building, we could rent it out for parties. We could make it a 2-family home and pull money for the mortgage. And, we just knew we have to figure out a way. And then we learned everything on the job. And in one sense, Josh, we knew exactly what we were doing. And in another sense, we had no clue what we were doing. And we kind of went in with that in mind, and we got 3 bids from contractors, and we couldn't even afford the lowest bid, and just really learned everything on the job, but having a clear vision of what we wanted. And then we had no money to even hang up drapes or curtains or even get furniture. And so we rented all the bedrooms out to my actor friends, and the downstairs garden floor we rented out to Robert's sister. And so we basically, became designers in a sense where that was our showcase, our showroom, where friends came over and would start kind of saying, oh, can you help us decorate? And we were always that couple, Josh, if we'd hung out together and maybe gone dancing or gone to listen to the Hanson brothers together, the next day we would have been at the flea markets and trying to tag you and bring you along. So anyway, in one sense, we found our career, or it found us, but we just never stopped from there. That was our kind of launching pad. And then the singer-songwriter Suzanne Vega came and rented our top floor out, our the bigger top 3 floors. And we moved down to the garden floor and just started looking for more real estate, and really became house flippers before anyone even knew what that was. And then also building custom homes for other people in downtown Manhattan, and taking a kind of spin on what is a traditional brownstone. We then started buying parking lots, gun shops, nightclubs, anything that was a small enough building that big developers passed up, but that were big enough that they could become private homes. And so that's what we did. I mean, we rode our Vespa around, walked the streets, and just tried to find unique property with a price tag we could afford, and then rezoned everything from the city, to get it passed for a residential.
November, Sue Firestone.
Well, when I was growing up and we moved around quite a bit, I always noticed that I was the one, even at the age of 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9, to pick the home, and love walking through the model homes. And when we moved to Malibu when I was 10, I picked the home, I picked my room. And but then I was actually sort of a hippie, barefoot, nature-loving Cal State Northridge major with majoring in pottery. And then 2 friends of mine, when I was 21 and in my last year, begged me to come part-time to be their receptionist, bookkeeper, junior designer, librarian. And it sort of took over my world. And so I moved from pottery to interior design within a year, and then after about 3 years was doing so well at Design One, actually became president. So it was an overnight sort of, switching from being a barefooted hippie potter to having to put on high heels and court clients and do presentations, and it just came naturally to me.
Isn't that interesting, though?
Yeah.
That it comes natural. It's not a natural thing.
I agree, but I do think it's learnable. I mean, I've seen people come and beg for a job and intern, and again, I think the 10,000 hour rule, like the Beatles always talk about, anybody can learn something and become pretty good at it if they put in the hours. So whether it's school or, I believe truly in real life experience, it's a matter of, yes, it comes easier maybe at 5,000 hours to some people, but which it did for me. But I've seen people who seem like they have no taste, but immerse themselves in it because they have a passion and they can learn it. So it's not as mysterious as maybe some designers want it to make it. I truly believe it's practice, open mind, understanding, and then, yeah, some of us have more of a natural knack for it.
Yeah, I think that the business is simple, but it's not easy.
No, it's grueling.
It is grueling, but it really is simple. And I think that oftentimes we make it a little bit too complicated.
True.
Where we are today compared to where we were when you started in the business, it's really different.
Yeah.
And you have to learn along the way. I mean, every aspect of what you do is different now, I would imagine, than when you started. Do you have a process for learning?
The process I learned very early on was to listen to my clients. And, I had a psychology minor, plus I have a lot of psychologists in my family. So I think the listening and being open, plus Design One developed into the largest model home merchandiser in the country during the 70s and early 80s. So we couldn't have a signature look. We had to listen to these developers who were selling their homes, to who the client was, who the mythical client was. So we always had sort of a Rorschach test for real clients, and then basically a what if for an imaginary client, first-time buyer, empty nester. And it was very easy sort of to adapt the style that we were doing to the taste of our client, or, like I said, to the mythical client. And we did that for about 10 years and grew very large. We actually ended up opening an office in Paris for Kaufman & Broad. And So it was, and then we had our lucky break into hospitality. Disney was looking for a non-hospitality designer, more had a residential background. That was us. And then we started doing their vacation homes, and then we took off and ended up doing 18 projects while Mike Eisner was there, which was unheard of. No other design firm had done that much work for Disney.
In December, wrapping it all up, it was Ron Woodson and Jamie Rummerfield of Woodson and Rummerfield's House of Design, with a special appearance by a good friend who is deeply missed, Christine Anderson.
Los Angeles.
Well, that and brings why we work so well together.
Mm-hmm.
That was my next question. Is you clearly work very well together, and you have very similar aesthetics, and I can see why you're a very good team. Do you have moments where you have a very distinctly different idea than Ron, and if that's the case, or vice versa, how do you deal with that? Very rarely is it distinctively different.
Right.
Now, what may happen is Jamie may have an idea, or I have an idea, and we both will take a look at it and we'll expand upon it.
Yeah.
So we're never the type that will look at one another and say, "Ooh, no, I don't."
What are you talking about?
Oh,
that's
lucky.
That's
wonderful. Good, great. Never
ever
happens.
A beautiful balance of a
Right.
relationship, and it's that old adage that 1 + 1 = 3. When we're together, we're our own entity, aside from ourselves. And so when I say, "Hey, look at this, Ron. What do you think of this?" and he says, "Yeah, and how about this?" So it goes from this level and it keeps going this up to
So you really build upon each other's talents, basically, and co-inspire each other, which is great.
And we hold each other to a standard of excellence as well. So
Sure.
it's a good partnership.
Now, did you work together at a design firm before you started your own? No. We both had our own firms and didn't know one another. Ah, okay. But we had vendors and friends and colleagues in common, and they would say to both of us independently, "Oh my God, you're so much like Ron," or "Ron would like that," or "Jamie would like that. Oh my God, Jamie?" And I'd say no, and she did the same thing. We didn't know one another, and this went on and on and on. And
LA is a big place, but
right.
I think when you start to find similar circles,
but we had never met.
It starts to overlap, but we
Everybody
had
kept
never met.
saying, "We all know you should be a match made in heaven," but you were the last to know.
That's
we
pretty
were the
much.
last to know. And neither one of us were looking for a partner.
Yeah.
I was just fine on my own, and so was she.
Yeah, and not to mention, when you look at one another, would he remind you of me?
Right.
Probably
That
not.
was the
But then
other thing.
it's in the work that we do that.
Sure. After seeing the interiors, I'd say it's a complete and total perfect match. But yeah, I mean, who knew? It's great. You obviously were supposed to be together. So that's really nice. Now, you work on a lot of celebrity homes, some really wonderful estates. Are you ever at liberty to talk about the celebrities that you work with? Or is it just simply a situation where you simply work in Hollywood? We can't. But on a larger level, simply, we work in Hollywood. Yes. We also have pillars of industry who come to us. I would say that our bread and butter is Hollywood. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And because of our aesthetic, as I said earlier, those types of clients are attracted to us. Right. Especially music people. We have some actor clients as well, but the music industry who really want to push the envelope are really attracted to Jamie and I and what we right. Yeah, it seems like it really would be. Yeah, and it's great because a fair amount of them we've ended up doing multiple projects together, and some have turned out to be good friends of ours as well through the process. That's always the best outcome. Exactly. Exactly. That's really wonderful. I was noticing on your website that you have a lot of items that people can purchase, things that you kind of hand-selected that are pretty fabulous, actually. And I just was wondering, do you add these pieces to your own collection, or is this kind of a unique offering for people to have pieces of what you do? Well, the way our relationship started is Jamie and I, our sort of nickname for one another is we call ourselves high-end hoarders. So we both had this, a great phrase. This huge inventory of furniture and accessories and art.
We can't stop shopping.
We can't. So which is why I have to drive a big car, because if I'm driving down the road and I see something out of the corner of my eye, I have to turn and get it.
Yeah. And that's anywhere, like a flea
Right.
market to just browsing, for for a client, and then you know, it's our duty to bring to the world of design and design enthusiasts what's new, what's interesting, and if we see something with provenance or something that's noteworthy, we pick it up. And usually it's a trinket or a piece of furniture or lighting that is in a treasure trove, like a diamond in the rough.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that treasure hunt, and we both share that passion. So you really have to know what you're looking for too. And when you see something, we both have studied interior design, we have art history, furniture history, architecture history backgrounds. And so it's easy to find something that maybe other people have passed up, but it's about a certain signature or a certain, you know, craft or creative thing that someone has made that you can recognize.
And I would think that would be half the fun, really, are finding those things that you have a really trained eye where you know it's fantastic, and somebody else might think it's just junk on the corner of the road, but the joy would be that you know it's going to be spectacular.
Right,
Or it's a
that's
centerpiece.
the fun of it. And with that, we had a showroom for 5 years on La Cienega, which was a lot of fun. It was our own incubator. It was done like a house, and we could do exactly what we wanted. We had no client. We were the client.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed every 90 days. And so we were always purchasing for the showroom. And it was just
so fun.
It was so much fun for us because we would have a different concept that we would come up with every 90 days.
That's
and we
very
would
ambitious to change
Yes,
the whole look. That
yes.
really is.
But
it was fulfilling for us.
right. And with that, we would have clients that would come in and buy a whole room.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it
And
always
so we would
paid
have
off.
to exactly. We
And
would
I
have
think,
to change.
Yeah, when you're in alignment with something you love to do, it things come to you, and it always works out. Like when we had our showroom with design projects, whenever we just trusted our instinct and followed our intuition on jobs, it always
And who we are.
shined through, and really
Right.
stayed true to who we are. That was always the best outcome, and it always worked out beyond our expectations. So, and the shop was the same way.
And was that showroom really the catalyst for some of the estates that you're working on now?
I think it was a perfect storm
Yes,
in a way.
yes.
You know,
It brought some of the notoriety to us. Because we were on La Cienega, we would have a lot of those people that would just walk into the showroom.
Right.
You know, it wasn't uncommon to have Drew Barrymore and Cameron Diaz in the showroom at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we would close the showroom for them. And they were such fun.
Yeah.
And we may not have met them had we not had the showroom.
Sure.
Yeah.
Not in that context, anyway.
Sounds like it was a very good three-dimensional calling card for you.
It was.
And
It
theater
was.
and everything
and
else.
incubator and
Yes.
science project.
Yes.
So yes.
And we had many parties. I miss the parties.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of parties, so I would imagine if Jay Gatsby were alive today and he knew who you were, I'm sure he'd hire you to do one of his estates.
Yes.
And so if he did, what would you do with it? I mean, talk about dream projects,
Oh,
you know?
gosh.
I could see you working on an enormous scale with a lot of theater.
Wow. Yes.
Absolutely.
Adding that
That's a
theatrical
perfect word.
feel to a property like that would just be the best.
Oh my gosh.
You know, because we add a bit of theater to all of our projects
Yeah.
anyway.
Yes.
But to have one like that you could just run wild
Yes.
would be.
And once I was done
The best.
staring at him for a while.
And I did all the work.
Yeah. And going to many dinners, you know, brainstorming with them. Then, you know, we'd have it all
Necessary
figured out.
dinners.
Necessary,
Right.
yes. I think
Right.
we would come up with something great.
Thank you, and congratulations to all of the 2025 Convo by Design Icon Registry inductees. This is such an immense joy and privilege to share these scions of design and architecture with you. Thank you again to Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home for presenting this and making it possible. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, share it with a friend or colleague who loves design and architecture like you do. Subscribe to Convo by Design wherever you get your podcasts, and continue the conversation on Instagram at Convo by Design with an X. Keep those emails coming with guest suggestions, show ideas, and locations where you'd like to see the show, Convo by Design at Outlook.com. Thank you to my partner sponsors, TimberTech, the AZEC Company, Pacific Sales, Best Buy, and Design Hardware for supporting the publication of over 650 episodes and making Convo by Design the longest-running podcast of its kind. These companies support the shelter industry, so give them an opportunity on your next project. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, be well, stay focused, and rise above the chaos.